how many TikToks do you need to watch on red flags until you test it out, right? What are you learning this information for? Like, obviously, you want this information to put it to practice.
People just love to ask women, how did you not see it, right? As though abusive men introduce themselves and say, hi, I'm going to be abusive. We never really know. And that really is a scary thing for so many women if you are considering dating. But I also want women listening to really consider when you dated this person. Look back at that, because I think a lot of times they show up on the first date and they're really kind and sweet. They're not showing up as controlling and cruel or impossible to leave or manipulative. They just don't do that. They seem interested and attentive and all the nice things. Abusive men don't get into relationships by showing women the truth. They get in by showing women a false reality and a complete lie. So we want to talk about teaching women how to see through this and how to date without fear. We're not going to be a human lie detector. I wish that was something we could really teach. But this is really about understanding why abuse is so difficult for women to see. So what did you miss? What can you look for in the future? And everything in between. So my guest today is Sarah Robles, a coach, survivor, and author of Finding Love After Abuse. It's a really hopeful and practical book about self-love and survival and attachment wounds and all of these things. So I'm so glad to have you here. And I want to sort of put it over to you and have you maybe do a deeper introduction on who you are and what got you here.
Yeah, my name is Sarah Robles. I go by SJ on social media, which is short for Sarah Jessica. And it's funny, I'm actually really surprised that I was even able to write this book, where there were so many years that I did not think that I would ever date again. And I know I'm not the only one. Like, how many people have you talked to who are just like, I'm good. I'd rather just be by myself with my dogs or my cats or my kids, whatever. So this book, and actually I'll show you real quick, this book actually surprised me too. Before I became an author, I started on social media. So one day I remember being in my laundry room and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start educating about what happened to me. And I started just reading every book that I could find about narcissistic abuse, about domestic violence, about coercive control. And I started making content on TikTok. And that's how I found you. Like, I found a whole community within TikTok. So through that, I've been doing abuse education for 6.5 years now. And I also am a coach. I'm a certified life and relationship coach. So I've really taken the pain of what I experienced and put it to purpose, because I think it impacted me so deeply that this is how I make sure that this wasn't done in vain, that someone didn't just abuse me just to do it, that I'm a very big believer in finding your purpose. And I have found my purpose in educating to get the word out there that this is a thing, and also to help other survivors navigate the aftermath of abuse.
You know, I got started in such a similar way. Won't tell the story now, but it's so interesting how it happens to you. You learn about it. You get your little PhD in narcissistic abuse on YouTube University or TikTok for some of us. Yeah. And then it's like, this has to mean something. And honestly, there's so many women that are not interested in reliving this or talking about it or educating. They want to just learn it and move on, and by all means. But some people educate as well. And I think it's amazing that it can come from a place of the lived experience that, frankly, a lot of clinicians don't have the lived experience. And then we can teach this. But you said something so interesting about, like, a lot of women are just never interested in dating again. I get it, because me too. And I felt like, in so many ways, I felt like I was too young to say that. I was 37 when everything blew up, and 38 when I was kind of like, should I get my life back together? No, I don't think so. I think I hate men. I think I'm also scared of men. I think I want nothing to do with men. My therapist told me to read a book called I Don't Want to Talk About It by Terrence Real, who's a therapist. And he really is like an expert in male depression and relationships and whatnot. Amazing. She wanted it to create some empathy for why men are so awful. Not all men are.
Right.
And I've read the book and it's an amazing book, but it didn't make me want to be around men more, I have to admit. But yet I met someone, I dated, I had awful dates, I had awful experiences, like post-abusive relationship dating, which honestly makes you go, oh, so that's what's out here. Okay, never mind. And you go back into your hole. You've probably had some similar experiences, but
Oh, yeah.
I wish that they were obvious. But I think you go on these dates early on and you're like, is he abusive? If he's nice, you're like, is he love bombing? Did he say something? Is it off? Did he look at someone funny? Did he say the wrong thing? Like, there's no self-trust, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly right. And when I've said things, when you've said things, when people are just like, I'm just done with dating. And when you get yourself out of that toxic relationship, there is a sense of peace that you have found. When you have distanced yourself enough, it doesn't mean that you're like fully away from them, because I know a lot of us maybe have kids with these people and we have to navigate court and all the post-separation abuse. But you find enough peace to remember how peaceful peace feels. Once you feel that, at least for me in my experience, I didn't want to let that go. And what I found I was doing, it wasn't so much that like I didn't like men. I'll agree with you on that. But I wasn't like, okay, every man out there is an abuser. I know like if there are good women out there, yeah, sure, there's good men out there sprinkled amongst them. But it was to the point where I realized I was actually caging myself in. And there was this epiphany that I had one day was like, I think that I'm saying this because I'm a badass woman. Like, I don't need a man. And like, I felt empowered by it almost. But the epiphany that I had one day was like, wait a minute, I shouldn't allow someone who broke my trust in other people be the end all be all. I should not allow them to have that amount of power. Because if I do, I'm giving them power to tell me how I can relate or connect to other people. I'm basically handing love that I may or may not find away to them. Like they're basically taking my opportunity to find happiness through a relationship. Now, you can have happiness on your own. And I definitely did. Like I felt amazing on my own. I never felt lonely. That's just me, right? But one day I was kind of coming to the conclusion that I wanted to give, I have a little girl, my mom. I wanted to give her an example of a healthy relationship so that I could set her up for success in the future when she tries to figure out what is it modeled like? What does it look like? In my life, it was not modeled very well. To me, it made a lot of sense of how I ended up in an abusive relationship. But I just one day, Lisa, I was just like sitting there. I was like, I'm not giving my love away to this person that didn't know how to love me right. I am going to try again. And it was the scariest decision I made. It took me, 2 years of horrible, I mean, we could probably go back and forth with like all the horrible dating stories and messed up men that we have encountered. It was a lot of that. But then one day, the conditions were right. And I found a good one. And I'm like pretty sure I found the man that one day I will call my husband. And I can't even believe that I'm saying that right now.
And I've known you for years. So like,
Yes.
I also can't, but amazing, incredible. You worded that so eloquently, that whole, your little epiphany and all that. I remember a moment where I was like, I will not let this piece of shit make me so angry and so miserable that I'm going to deny a future awesome man the privilege of being with me. And you could say that sounds cocky, but like I really had worked on my self-love and my confidence so much because he destroyed it that I was like, I'm really going to let some clown, some mid-loser man from my past make me so destroyed that I'm not going to be happy. And to your point, model what a healthy relationship looks like for my kids and have them see what a healthy relationship looks like. But also, no offense to my kids, but like, what about me? I want that. And despite the feminism and the fact that so many people see feminism as like a man-hating thing, people sort of like equate that. I don't hate men. I hate abusive men. I hate them to my core. But I love men. I love my son. I love my father. I love my brother. I love my brother-in-law. And I love my fiance. It's like, they're great men are everywhere. My friends have great husbands. So I know it's possible. And I know a lot of women are like, where? Both of you two, stop talking. Where? I think we both met them online, just as like an aside. And online feels like, to me, I felt like a raccoon sifting through trash.
Oh my God. I haven't heard that exact analogy, but it is spot on. when I tell you, okay, so I had all these different rules for the swiping game because I met my boyfriend on Hinge, okay? But I went through all these different apps and I remember just kind of going through them and it was just like you said, like trash, no, oh my God, what on earth? And like looking at it through the lens after abuse, it looks so different where I was able to vet very quickly. I would say 99% of the men that showed up, I would swipe left. I was just like, absolutely not, no way in hell. And it's something that you said, it's like, it doesn't make you cocky to recognize your value. I think when we were with these narcissistic POSs, they saw our value. They did. That's why they picked us. They saw that we had value and they wanted to diminish that value, right? They wanted us to feel small. So for a long time, you feel diminished, you feel devalued, you feel small. When you get the hell away from them, you start to rebuild your confidence. You start to see like, whoa, wait a minute. I wasn't just like your average girlfriend. Like I was one hell of a girlfriend. I was one hell of a wife. Their devaluation of me is a them problem. It does not mean that I'm any less valuable. So when you come back to that space, right, in the healing process, and you're just like, wait, I'm actually a fucking catch, okay? And it is a privilege to be with me. And there is a man out there who is smart enough to recognize your value and treat you accordingly. But there's also a lot of men who want to diminish you. And so, through this vetting process, I would say through all the TikToks and all the education, all the reading, it definitely helped me have my discernment much better than before I went through the abusive relationship. I could vet easily, but that's not where it stops. And I think that's where people need to remember when you're dating, you're data collecting, and you're not just collecting data about another person, you are collecting data about yourself. I started to realize there were areas in my life and things within me that I had not addressed yet. Healing is an individual thing, but the next step, if that's something that you want, right? If you want to be single for the rest of your life, by all means do it. It's a free world. If that's for you, cool. Whatever makes you happy. But healing has to happen relationally. You need to heal in the relationship to really figure out how you connect with people. Because these toxic abusers, no matter if it showed up in your childhood or romantically, they have broken your trust and your ability to have like a healthy, normal relationship with another person, right? It's like you become like very hypervigilant, paranoid even of people, very mistrusting. You have to, when you're now dating and in a relationship, learn how to trust not only another person, but how to trust yourself again. And it is easier said than done. I don't know about you, but like, even still, like things are going so great, but there's that little like that trauma voice that comes in that's like, this is too good to be true. What if the red flag is just lurking, really hidden, and one day the shoe drops and it was all a lie, right? We've heard all the stories. So it's like, how do you now navigate this relationship with all these other little trauma responses that rear their ugly head all the time?
And honestly, like, I don't know if there's an easy answer for that, but you're saying something so important because I think that we don't trust people anymore. So we avoid dating because you don't trust men. Makes sense, except in order to ever learn how to trust men, you have to start to trust men. What a catch-22. But it's kind of like, how do you break a trauma bond, right? You have to go no contact. Well, how do you go no contact if you're still in love with? So
Yeah.
this part of, dating or experiencing things with safe men, could be somebody else's husband. I mean, safe things to be clear, but having experiences where you learn men can be safe. Because if you've only ever experienced them as harmful, or you've experienced one or two that are extremely harmful, you're going to be gun shy. That makes complete sense, but you have to do it. And I am always reminded of this circumstance, and it was someone that I'm dating, not someone that am with now, but he offered me a Diet Coke from my own fridge, I might add, but it's not even the point. He was like, I'm getting a drink. Do you want a drink? Do you want me to grab you a Diet Coke? And I was like, no, I'm good. I was thirsty. Okay, we just want to point that out. In that moment, my brain went, yes. And my mouth went, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then he sat down with his drink and drank, and we were eating chips or something, whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking, you idiot, to myself. What, like, now what? You just sit here thirsty? because you can't get up and get a drink 3 seconds after. So I was like, wow, what's the appropriate amount of time to wait? And I decided it was 5 minutes. So I literally watched the clock for 5 minutes. I got up, got a Diet Coke, sat down, and he looked right at me and went, what the heck? And I was like, oh, I didn't know I was thirsty. And then I realized I am. So I just got up and got it myself. And he was like, you could have just asked me. I would have gotten back up. And my first thought was, are you kidding me? I would never ask you. You'd be sitting down, ask you to get up. And then I thought, where's that coming from? My therapist helped me unpack. My ex would have, if he was at the fridge getting water and I said, can you grab me one too? Like, were your legs broken? You lazy? I was 7 months pregnant. He didn't even care. It was always name calling and mocking. And so we know where the trauma comes from.
Oh, yeah.
Had I not had that experience with him, what I'm realizing is that I wouldn't have recognized that I have a problem asking for help. Because if I ask for help, it means I'm lazy, bad, stupid, selfish, incapable, whatever. But that's the story that I learned in the abusive relationship. So to unlearn it, I need to ask for help, specifically from men. And that's hard because it almost gives them a little bit of power. Like, you're in a position to help me. I don't like it.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that is when men are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is looking out for you, protecting, providing, we as women, we kind of we start to, and you'll hear this, you've probably heard this before, we act more masculine, right? And so, of course, you're going to act more masculine when suddenly maybe you're a single mom and you're doing all of the burden of the household, all of the burden of the work, the taking care of the kids. Like, you are literally holding the world on your back. When you meet a healthy man, tell me if you feel this way, life feels easier. Like, I actually feel like in a healthy relationship, everything is easy. And I'll give an example. I wanted to get a bigger bed. Okay. I wanted to get a king size bed. I finally did it. I get the boxes delivered to the house. They're so heavy. Okay. Now, I just so happen to be dating a bodybuilder. This dude is jacked. Okay. I don't know if you saw pictures of him, but he's jacked. So I'm just like, oh man, these boxes are so heavy. I don't even ask him, Lisa. He just goes into the garage, takes his muscles, puts this thing over his shoulder, walks up the bed frame and the mattress upstairs. Then he proceeds to unpack everything and put it together. And I just kind of sat there and I was like, I feel so soft. I feel like I am finally in my soft, feminine energy that I forgot what it felt like to feel, you know that song, it's like, man, I feel like a woman. I feel like a woman again. He makes me feel, and it's not like it's just like gender rules, like he literally just softens me and makes me melt into a pile of goo because I didn't have to ask him for help. When you were talking about, I have trouble asking for help. So do I. And if I could bet money, I'm sure a lot of us survivors do, because we didn't get help. Because giving help to someone requires empathy. Like, you have to see that there's a need that you would have to help them with. These narcissistic people, these toxic people, you work for them. You're supposed to do everything for them. You're their personal assistant. So when you finally have help again, like someone's offering you a Diet Coke, someone's making you a bed frame, it feels uncomfortable. And when you were describing, you're having this whole little dialogue in your head of like, oh my God, do I ask for the Diet Coke? It's been 5 minutes. Is that appropriate? That's a trauma response. When my boyfriend was making the bed frame, I was sitting there just kind of watching him and I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting there watching and I felt really uneasy. This was actually this weekend. I felt really uneasy and I was just like, what is happening to me right now? And I just blurted out to him. I was like, I feel like I'm going to get yelled at. And he looked at me like, why do you feel like you're going to get yelled at? I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm going to get yelled at. I'm not doing anything. I'm not helping. I'm not directing you on how to build this bed frame. And he looked at me. He was like, sweetie, I'm not going to yell at you. And I was like, I think I'm having a trauma response right now. And I sat through that and I realized, yeah, like I would have been yelled at if I didn't help or if I didn't do the thing. And it's amazing to me. Like there's a couple voices. I don't know if it's like the voices in my head. It sounds so crazy, but like there's like the voice of that abuser is still in your head. Like even when you physically get away, I don't know about you, but like you were saying, like if I asked for the Diet Coke, he would say I'm stupid and lazy. That's them. They're still wired in to your nervous system, into your thought process. And even still, it's been like 7 years since this toxic relationship ended. I'm still hearing those like nagging criticisms in my head. And it's interesting. You're in a relationship with someone new, someone healthy, but that voice is still in your head. So it's like you're almost still dealing with the aftermath of what psychological and emotional abuse really does. And it doesn't just go away. It's not a matter of just getting over it. It's like, how do you evict that critical voice out of your head? And I don't know the answer for that either, because it's still there. I don't know if you still experience that to this day.
So much less,
Yeah.
much less. And actually, the answer really is experience. It's so you sat there and you watched him and you didn't help. And he said, "It's okay, sweetie, it's okay." And you experienced that safety. And now you know that next time he's doing something for you, that he takes probably pleasure in helping you, in giving you this service, so to speak. And he's not expecting anything back. So that it's repetition. And I've been with my partner for 4 years. And I would say it was like around the beginning of the 3rd year mark that I started to like relax. I will admit that every so often he has to take me by the shoulders and have me sit, because if he's doing something, which he's always moving around the house, he is constantly like cleaning something, doing something, whatever. He does all the outside stuff, what men say, that men do all the outdoor stuff. He does do all of that, but he also does dishes and laundry and just vacuums and does things. Someone's going to ask, what do I do? Shut up. But anyways, I do lots, but there's lots of so many things to do. But it's okay if I'm sitting down. Like, he can be doing the dishes and I can be sitting on the couch watching a show. And he's not wondering like, how come I'm doing the dishes he literally wants me to sit down. That's weird. Because at first I was like, what's he going to expect as a result of this? What's the payment? What's the cost? Because I was used to there being a cost. But all of this, yes, it's a trauma response, but finding your way into safety has to come from a little bit of risk. And I think that's the piece right there of women are like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. No risk. I'm not doing that at all.
They don't want to take the risk again, which I don't blame them, honestly. I mean, because, these toxic people, these abusers, they're really good at creating harm. They create a lot of harm, and it makes like my eyes and my worldview forever changed after this abusive relationship. Like in a way, it's weird. In a way, I'm grateful for it. Like, I'm not saying I give any credit to the abuser whatsoever, but I'm grateful now that I can see the world for what it is. There are people out there that are like the monsters that we say live under our bed. No, they're actually just walking amongst the street, looking like your neighbor, looking like a regular old person, and they create a lot of harm. So I'm grateful in a sense that I'm not living in a world where I think I was a little bit naive. I didn't really understand just how harmful people could be. Like, I kind of knew, but you don't really know until you experience it firsthand. But it's just, they create so much harm that it makes it really difficult to want to take that risk again. And you're right. Like, that's kind of the thing about love in general. You're risking like someone's going to hurt you. You're risking your heart might be broken. Maybe someone threatened your life. There's a lot of risk that comes with being vulnerable with other people. But that's kind of the thing, right? Where there's risk, there's also the potential for great reward. So it's like, you don't want to just throw caution to the wind. In my book, I talk a lot about like how to date with the discernment. Like, how many TikToks do you need to watch on red flags until you test it out, right? What are you learning this information for? Like, obviously you want this information to put it to practice to see if you can discern and find healthy friends, healthy partners. Like, there's going to be a little bit of risk. And that's really what I'm trying to empower survivors to do, where like, I get that it's scary, but that you can try again and you might find the love of your life. I know you have. I've known so many survivors over the years that we have met, like over these last 6 or 7 years, that are engaged, ready to be married. They're taking risk. Does it mean it's not scary? No, there's always, being in love is a very vulnerable thing. I think about it all the time. I'm just like, is a shoe going to drop today? But again, it's like, it's that repetition. It's that consistency, and it's consistent, healthy behavior. And when I tell you, like you said something about there being a cost. like this person is being loving towards you and there's a cost, right? That is spot on. And I think that's why it's hard to trust people. When someone's doing something loving, when they're doing something nice, they're getting you a Coke, they're making your bed, you're thinking to yourself the whole time, what is this going to cost me? Is this just a carrot that's being dangled? This is too good to be true. But the thing is, when someone really loves you, it doesn't cost anything at all. And it's so funny that you said that because I actually said that to my boyfriend. I said, I owe you one. And he looked at me and he was like, you don't owe me anything. I don't? That's weird.
Yeah,
That's
what
different.
you mean. And then it's like, you don't even trust that. I think one of the biggest issues that I see in post-abuse dating is people say, you have to heal before you date. Be healed, go to therapy. Yeah, go to therapy, heal, sure. But remember that heal is not to become healed, as in there's a you do the thing and then you are healed and now you go out into the world and you date. Dating can be healing. Dating can be friggin' traumatizing, okay? We're not going to pretend that's not true. But dating can be healing. And I think even when two parts, okay? So I remember this person that I dated, the Diet Coke guy, let's say, when that relationship ended, I remember feeling sad, but okay, which made me feel like, okay, like I'm not going to die. This isn't, I wasn't like deeply, madly in love. Maybe probably shouldn't have been dating that person to begin with. He's not abusive, but toxic for sure, but not for me. And it ended. And a couple of months later, I was in therapy and I was talking to my therapist about the idea of dating again and being like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I trust myself because how do I know that if I met someone bad, that I would do the right thing? And she was like, what are you talking about? You just did the right thing. And I was like, no, but he wasn't abusive. And she was like, so what? That's even harder. Like leaving someone who's just not for you. You didn't leave him because he screamed at you or hit you or didn't get you Diet Cokes. Like, look, he's a nice guy. He shoveled my driveway. He did the dishes. He did all kinds of things. But like, we weren't the right fit. But I proved to myself, but she needed to tell me that. I needed to have it like slapped in my own face of, you have proven to yourself that you are willing to end something that isn't right for you. That matters. And then I was on a date with someone who was acting like a complete crazy person on the date. Like I could tell, I don't tell the whole story because it's long, but like it was just weird. The entire date was weird. And at one point he was talking about being my kid's stepdad on the first date. It was crazy.
Oh my God.
I didn't continue. I didn't give him a second chance. I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. I was like, that's weird. Now, everyone might think that's obviously so profoundly weird that it seems obvious. But in context, I could see how someone wouldn't think. It's not like he said, we're getting married tomorrow. He was just talking about if in the future. But that's weird. So I tracked it and I actioned it. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm proving this to myself. Then I started dating the person I'm with now, and he was normal. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I thought, okay, wait, Lisa, chill, deep breath. He seems great. That means he's a narcissist. Okay, he's definitely a narcissist. And I would say to him like, are you real? Every time he would do something nice or say something nice, I'm pretty sure to the degree that he was annoyed by how often I asked him, but he was just consistent. And then safety built. But I had to take the risk of dating people. But it's like, this is just my thing, but I used to say, okay, old Lisa would have said, that's not that weird that he said the stepdad thing, but it is weird. So I had to, okay, well, what did I feel? I felt it was weird and I told myself it wasn't that weird, but I'm going to trust the feeling.
Yes.
Okay. I had to slow it down like a dummy, like I had to really be like, what did I feel? Discomfort. Where did I feel it? It was in the pit of my stomach. Well, that's not a good feeling. Maybe you shouldn't date somebody who talks like that. There were other things too. To be fair, that wasn't the weirdest thing, but there were so many reasons. And then I just decided I'm going to be a grown-up and I'm going to explain to him. I'm going to tell him I found that he made me uncomfortable on the date and I don't want to continue, but please, best of luck and let's part ways. And he was like, but you didn't give me a chance to really show you. That's not fair. We should go out on a second date so I can really block.
Yeah.
Interrupt the 3 dots, block. Absolutely not.
Right.
You were literally hearing me say no and you were pressuring me to go on a second date. I was right. But again, I use the information you're being given. You said something earlier about vetting, and we always look at dating as like interviewing and getting to know someone. How is vetting different than getting to know someone?
Yeah, so it actually stems off from what you're saying. It's remember, like there's an emotional aspect of this, right? When you are vulnerable, you start to open up the emotion. So it's not just vetting on an interview. Like if you're going to a job interview, you're just kind of like saying, "This is who I am and what I have to offer." The company or whatever is like, "Yeah, this is what we're looking for. This is what we also have to offer." It's very like transactional. When you're in a relationship, you're like you said, it's not just about if somebody gets you a Diet Coke. There's different things that need to happen when you're vetting. And it could be as simple as like location, right? You're not going to date someone that's like on the other side of the world. It's just not, or maybe you will, I don't know. It's not practical though, right? There's things that you're vetting, like locational convenience, that you can actually see someone, spend time with them in real life and gauge how it feels to be with that person. You're looking for chemistry, right? Like with that guy you were talking about, the something in your body was just like red alert. And let me tell you right now, one thing that I learned through this whole dating experience is your body knows way before your brain does. Your gut and your nervous system picks up on it first. And if something feels weird, it's not always the mistake that I made is that I would attribute it to trauma. I'd be like, "Oh, that's just my trauma speaking." No, it was detecting real live information that was a red flag. Like when we say listen to your gut, like listen to that feeling in your belly. If you feel uneasy, if you feel weird, that's like the best information you're going to have. Something about this doesn't feel right, okay? Maybe you don't have chemistry. It's also like the core values. Does this person align with things that you care about as well, right? And like you need to have that alignment. And I think where it becomes difficult in the vetting, it's the mistrust. It's the mistrust of self. It's the, okay, things are going really well. When you said like, is he real? I said the same thing. I was like, are you for real right now? Like this is like, I thought to myself, I was like, he's one of those narcissists that's like the ultra covert, and they have the long game that like, this is literally like, sometimes I still have these thoughts. I'm like, oh, this is the long game one. But it's like, I'm still taking a risk of like what information disproves this narrative that I'm telling myself because I have a hard time trusting myself, right? The vetting process is a lot of different things. It's not just the basic information of what they tell you, what they show you, what they do. It's also like, how do you feel in the presence? And I remember coming back from dates of like, oh, like I feel like I left a date feeling angry one time. Like I felt legit angry. I was like, I don't want to be with someone that I just leave feeling frustrated and angry because they asked me what my body count was. And I thought that was a really disgusting question. And I know, right? I walked away like, who asked that? What are they doing with this information? So like the vetting is, I think, one of the most challenging parts of it because there's so many different people. You're trying to figure out, are they just nice or are they love bombing? And I don't know if you get comments like that, like, how do I know if it's love bombing or not? And I'm like, you have to think about, again, it's the patterns. You have to look at the patterns. What are they saying? When are they saying it? How are they saying it? It's not an easy thing to say, like, is this love bombing or not? Sometimes people are genuinely just very like loving and they buy you flowers. It's not about the flowers. It's about the intent behind it. Why are they doing it? Is it a shut up gift? Did they just say something mean to you and then all of a sudden they're getting you a gift now? Like, what is the sequence of events? Does it stop abruptly one day once you guys like get in a committed relationship? It's the patterns. You know, they say like people are their patterns. That's true. You have to look at the patterns. And honestly, Lisa, you should be looking at the patterns forever. Like, it's not like once you're in a relationship, you just, okay, blinders on. You're always looking. You're always observing to see how people are treating you. Because if it's 10 years down the road, and we've seen people in marriages like 20 years, and then they get divorced because they were like, this person started cheating on me, or they all of a sudden they saw the true nature of what they were capable of, right?
It's so hard. You know, we talk about dating and women are always afraid of dating a narcissist. Okay. So they're afraid and they're like hypervigilant, and that's horrible and totally a trauma response. Is he this? And he said that, and the stepdad comment or body count questions, or what do you bring to the table? All those, some things are obvious. There's this flip side of dating, and I see this a lot. And I'm thinking of a very specific client, in fact, but when you date, and this happens to women, you're dating and it feels great. and there are no red flags, but you've been through it and you're hypervigilantly looking for red flags, but there's nothing. You feel great. Every time you see him, you feel happy, you feel safe, you feel great. You are feeling things for the person. You're not feeling like you're going too fast. Everything's ticking the boxes and you're paralyzed with fear because you use that as evidence that you see you're not seeing anything, and you're not seeing anything because you're stupid and you're going to miss it, and he's going to spring out of the shadows in 6 months and be a narcissist.
Right.
So you get nervous that there are no red flags. So asking what are the red flags, again, you brought up this point of like, it is how you feel. So if you feel safe and you feel good, but your brain is telling you you're missing something, you need to be able to kind of, maybe I am and maybe I'm not. I can't know this right now. You got to get comfortable in the ambiguity of not knowing. But I would suggest, my advice is to slow down.
Yes. And to stem off that, like when I'm such a nerd. When I started dating, I would take notes. Like I literally would create, do not judge me for what I'm going to tell you, everybody. I would create a project file. Okay. This is hypervigilance. I'd create a project file with the person's name and I would take notes. Okay. And these were notes for myself just so I could like write what I was feeling. And then I would come back to it later and be like, okay, what does this all mean? So what I call it is pinning information. Okay. So if somebody said, like, for example, the guy that asked about the body count, that I would pin that question as a piece of information. I'd be like, today, so-and-so asked me about my body count. And I don't know how I feel about it. I feel angry, right? Then I started going down this like rabbit hole of like, why did that make me feel angry? And then I would finally come to the conclusion. I was like, oh, because he's a dog and he devalues women based on some arbitrary number for things that she did consensually with people as an adult. He doesn't value me as an equal. And I remember ending it after that. I was just like, hey, I don't think there's going to be another date. We're done. Okay. That's the way that I did it. I would take information. But the thing is, I think one of the challenging things is like, okay, we know all these red flags. We like if someone says, oh, all my exes are crazy. Okay, I put that in the red flag category, right? But at what point do you action the red flag, right? Is the red flag red enough for you to not want to get to know that person again? I think there's different categories of like you said, the obvious red flag with that dude you were on a date with of like, something about it just gave you the ick. You walked away from it. It's a couple things. Figuring out what your deal breaker really is. And the second piece that I think people that are challenged with is, can I trust myself to walk away if the red flag is red enough that I cannot stay here anymore? And I think what happens is, and I had one situation, actually, I think it was last year, where I had met a gentleman. He was really attractive. I felt really attracted to him and we were getting along. And then he abruptly was just like, this isn't going anywhere. I sobbed as if I had been in a relationship with him for 3 years. Okay. And then I found myself crying, really upset, and was like, what the hell is this response? Because I could logically look at it like, okay, I pinned all these things. How did I miss it? Right? How did I miss this? Why am I so upset? And then I realized that beyond just the vetting of these red flags and pinning this information, there's stuff within me that's also going on with how I interpret relationships. Have you ever, like the term limerence, have you ever done any deep dive on limerence at all?
I haven't done deep dives, but I know what it means and I've heard of it. But explain it, because I don't think most people do.
So for me, I learned that I struggle with something called limerence, okay? Limerence a lot of the times is like a phenomena for, if a child is going, and I'm not a psychologist or anything, but like a child is in, they have their parents and maybe one of their parents is emotionally unavailable. Well, it hurts their feelings that their parent is emotionally unavailable. So what they do is they end up creating these stories, almost like this fantasy of what they wished their relationship was like. And so when you meet someone that you're drawn to, you start to create these stories that are not even happening in real life. And I found myself doing that with this particular guy where I was already envisioning us getting together, envisioning our future. We weren't having any of these conversations. I was in this fantasy land because he had emotional unavailability. I was just like, maybe he's not a good texter, right? I was kind of like chalking it up to like, maybe he's not a good texter and he's just a little bit older and I'm a millennial and we're just not jiving. No, he was emotionally unavailable. And I found myself creating these stories to fill in where I longed for the emotion to be. I liked him, but he didn't like me in the same way, right? So I found through this limerence, I was hoping that he would choose me. And I think a lot of us get into relationships with the wrong people because we are just so desperately craving to be chosen. Like it's just, you want to be chosen. You want someone to be like, oh my God, I see your value. You're amazing. This is it. We're going to get married. It's going to be love, 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 love. And so I was filling in those gaps because it wasn't there. Now, obviously, when that one didn't work out, I was about to throw in the towel. I was like, it's been 2 years. I can't find a good one. I found some okay men, but again, the chemistry was lacking. But I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then one day, I had this like little feeling in my gut, like, don't give up. Just take a pause. Don't give up. Let's see who's in your queue. And I went into my Hinge queue, and there he was. My boyfriend. His name's Virgil. My boyfriend Virgil. He was there, and he was really fine. Like he was so good looking. I was just like, whoa. But beyond him being physically good looking, he was just like, we just mesh. We just get along. We're very similar in a sense. Like we have similar point of view. But I'm glad that, as I'm pinning all these pieces of information, the one thing that I am so proud of myself is that I was able to walk away. That is the key. I was able to walk away from all the losers or the people that weren't the right fit in order to get to the right one. And I think what happens is we get so fixated on already finding him, finding the love of your life, that you want to push the circle into the square, just like, let's just get this done already. I just want to be in love already. That's not how it works. It sometimes takes time. Sometimes the conditions have to be right. If you want to believe in fate, sometimes the stars and moon have to align for you to meet that person. It's not like when you want it to. So I think one advice I'd give to people dating after abuse, be patient with yourself. First, not just with all the trauma responses you're going to feel. Be patient with the interesting people that you'll meet, but just be patient with the timing of things. Like there is a timing element. And if the time isn't right, it's not right. And I don't know about you, but that phrase of like, when you know, it's real. I really feel that there's a truth in that there's something that's like, when you truly know that this is your person, there's something that it just feels right. I can't explain it. I don't know if you felt that way in your situation.
I did. And I think that I also felt that way about my abuser. I knew, and I was wrong.
This is true.
It actually, I have to admit, yes, I felt it with the person I'm with, but it mirrors the feeling I had then. And so my brain was like, well, what? So you're stupid, and they're both narcissists. And again, he's not one. But
Yeah.
the amount of times I was like, do you see how he's I was like pushing myself. But I think that comes to, you have a story in your mind, and then you start seeking evidence. Confirmation bias, right, puts you in that direction. We're terrified. And I've heard people say this. Sandra L. Brown once said it. In fact, you and I were hosting a webinar where she said it that interview of like, trust your gut. And I remember the psychologist on that same webinar was like, how? Like, you just say, trust your gut. Like, what is that? What does that mean? I agree. What the hell does that mean? You have to separate your intuition from fear. And it can feel like the same thing, especially when you mix in hypervigilance and trauma responses and
this is
red
true.
flag.
This is true. So it's like, and this is where the trouble is. It's like, it feels the same. So like when you know, but that can't be the only deciding factor, right? Like if your gut is telling you like, yes, but I think that's what narcissists are good at. They're good at getting you to override your gut or to make you feel like basically you believe the illusion that they create, and they're salespeople. Like they are so good at sales of a false person, and you believe they are who they say they are when they're not. So I think, in this particular situation, when I say I know, it wasn't on the first date. I knew something was different. Like I knew something was different. I was like, oh, okay. And I found that like I wasn't pinning all these red flags the way I was. I was like, okay, there's literally nothing. Like there's nothing to pin. There's no red flag, which can also be unsettling to your point. But when I knew it is when I saw him being the same version of himself consistently.
Yeah.
Like he'll say what he's going to do. He does what he said he'd do. If he says, I'll be there at 6, guess what? He's there at 6. If he says, I'm here to meet your family, he doesn't discard me on the important day to meet my family. he comes and he proves with evidence that he is who he says he is. So it's like, it's the feeling in the gut of like, I feel, I know, but to your point, and I think that's a good point, narcissists are good at making you feel that way. They make you feel like they're your soulmate, but they don't say, their actions and the things that they say don't align. Like there's inconsistency and discrepancy in that. So I think maybe you have to do this in tandem, right? You have to slow down. Yeah. You don't have to decide tomorrow that like you're going to get married and have kids. Like you don't have to decide that. Like steady as she goes. Take the time to like really get to know who this person is. Plan out fun dates. Do they plan fun dates? Is it mutual? Are you guys putting mutual effort? Is it all you? Like pay attention to all the things. Does it feel easier? When you said like I sat down and I could relax, not with a narcissist though. You could never do that.
Never. Oh my God, you could jump up and start wiping the counter when the counter's
clean. Like I'm doing something, right? That when I said it, I feel like I'm going to get yelled at because you have to constantly do something. So it's not like there's this quick fix formula of like, 10 steps to how to find love after abuse. It's not a thing. It's a process, and taking it slow, listening to your body, what your body's signaling to you, like really listen. Yeah. Like pinning most the red flags.
I love like what you're describing of writing it down. As much as I laughed, but it's actually brilliant in many ways, because what's the crazy part? The writing part? Why not? You keep your thoughts straight. We do that in our little mental bank anyway. But one thing that is so clear to me is that what we tend to do is meet someone and we fill in the gaps unconsciously, of course, right? That's just what we do. And then when something contradicts something in that little memory bank that we already have into the evidence pile of this is a good person, if something contradicts it, we don't put it in the bank of evidence. We just go like, oh, that's not true because hold on. It goes in the bank. Everything goes in. Pin that to where it needs to be. Remember that, because you can have done all the healing and the therapy and all the stuff. Healing is not going to make you immune to deception or abuse or manipulation. But what we're both talking about is all the times that we trusted ourselves just enough to take a different action. And I would actually even further say that if you don't trust, just end it. Like you're not missing it. Trust me, I promise you there's a million men. I promise you, you can go to Walmart, swing your purse, you'll hit 10 of them. It's not hard. Men are easy to find. Good men, I understand. I'm not claiming that's easy. I refer you to my raccoon sifting through trash comment. But there are good men. And honestly, as a woman who's called a misandrist and a man-hater and bitter every day, it will never not make me laugh because I think men are amazing. I actually think more highly of men than men think of themselves, because men are constantly telling me how all men only want sex and all men are awful and all men this and all men that. And then I'm not allowed to say all men anything, of course. But
right.
You have to just realize that you might not be able to guarantee you're not going to meet another abusive person, but you need to practice the act of self-trust to know that you will make different decisions. And if you're too scared to start with dating, then don't do that. Start with friends. Start with meeting a new person or a new coworker you want to buddy up to, something. Start in a smaller way, learning how to interact with people and learn about relational discernment, which is a very important thing. I actually have it in an upcoming group coaching program where that'll be one of the things we teach. But relational discernment is such an important skill, and I want more people to have it. I, like you, I'm not a dating coach. I am not invested in whether or not people want to date. But I think the truth is, while most women I speak to are terrified to date again, and rightly so, they still want to. Women, not all, because I mean, I can think of so many people right now that are like, no, never, and I believe you. And I would never try to convince someone. But I'm talking to the woman who wants to, but is too scared to. And I think that's also the perfect person to read your book. You're nervous and you don't even know where the hell you could possibly start to learn how to trust yourself or trust another person. And I get it. But I really want people to obviously read your book, but like learn that in yourself and start to trust yourself in small ways and start to take little risks in trusting other people. There's a lot of opportunity. You could hire someone to do a handyman job in your house, or trust that your friend is going to show up for you and just point out, like, I know that this person will show up for me because they just did. And that goes into my evidence bank that some people can be trusted.
Yeah.
And keep going.
Yeah. It is a risk. And, if you stick it out, it's a risk worth taking. And I think you'll learn a lot about yourself through it. Again, healing doesn't just end with you. We are social creatures. We are by design meant to connect. And you don't want to hand that to someone that broke that. Like that doesn't belong to them. Your love is the greatest thing. Like it is real, it is out there. And when you can find it, like the reward that comes with that is great. And I'm surprised that this is even coming out of my mouth, even today. Like I'm surprised by this whole book. I wrote most of it just sitting in my garage where I hide to think. And I was reflecting on all the different dates, all the different epiphanies and realizations that I had as a survivor going through this. And one thing that I want to remind people is we're so good at talking about the harm, the manipulation, and the abuse, right? We talk about it a lot because it's interesting to figure out like, wow, these people exist. Like, why do they do this? Why are they doing this to me? But the thing that I want to see us talk more about is the hope core, right? The hope core for people who have gone through abuse, who have recognized that they still long to find love, and they're going to be brave now. It is, being brave doesn't mean you don't feel fear. You feel fear and you still put yourself out there. Now, again, I know dating can be dangerous. Absolutely. I'm not going to deny that. But there is a way, and my book is to help you find that way and navigate looking for love after abuse. And then if you find it, if you're lucky enough to find it, how to accept love. Because I think that's the other part that's hard is like, how do I accept this now? How do I keep it here? So this is my book. I think it's really helpful for those that are navigating the aftermath. It's how do you trust yourself again? How do you put yourself out there again? How do you learn to love again?
Yeah, I love that. Like I really do. I think it's such a necessary thing because it's a unique experience for people. And it's not just like how to date or, meet them on Hinge. It's the internal work because that's at the end of the day, like that's what we need is the internal work. Some of it is just learning that your discomfort matters and new information matters. You're allowed to slow down. You're allowed to vet someone, not just date someone. You're dating through vetting or vetting through dating. It matters. So thank you so much. I'm so happy we had this conversation. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Where can people find you?
Yes, so you can find me on TikTok and Instagram is where I live these days. And also you can reach out to my website, which in my bio on TikTok, I have my website. So if you want to ever work with me one-on-one or talk to me more about your situation, you can connect with me there.
Absolutely. And definitely everybody check out her book on Amazon, Finding Love After Abuse. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.